Us donem la benvinguda a Caixa Fòrum Macaya. De seguida començarà l'activitat. Si us plau, comproveu que teniu els telèfons mòbils apagats. Moltes gràcies. Les damos la bienvenida a Caixa Fòrum Macaya. En breves momentos comenzará la actividad. Por favor, comprueben que sus teléfonos móviles están apagados. Muchas gracias.
Buenas tardes, buonasera.
Good afternoon.
Bonjour.
Sabah al-khair. Good afternoon. I'm pretty happy to be here with you in this meeting. And it is our great satisfaction to count on the presence of some young students that occupy the second part of the room, coming from California, with Professor Albarracin, whom I would like to welcome here. And I think that it's going to be more interesting for certain people that are more familiar with this kind of climate, which is, I don't know if this is what brings you here. Anyhow, welcome. And please come back anytime. We're delighted to have you. And I would like to thank all attendees, and very especially the speakers who came over to attend this new session of this cycle on a topic that is going to be gaining more ground. And also thanks to the moderator, he came from closer. But anyhow, we're grateful for his presence here. And thank you all for your attendance. When I was trying to imagine today's work, and by the way, apologies, because I'm going to welcome you here, but then I need to leave. And I need to leave because of family reasons, and I cannot attend all the sessions, but I will have the fortune to follow it later because it's going to be recorded. So when I thought that I needed to excuse myself when I give the floor to the moderator, I remembered that in the previous session some weeks ago, we celebrated positive news, which was the publishment by the Vatican of a document, which was the Laudate Deum, if I'm not mistaken. Laudate Deum. And it was complemented by Laudato Si, and it was an important contribution for the humankind. So we had a good news to celebrate, and it coincided with the date of the session of October the 4th. Currently, unfortunately, there's nothing to celebrate, but the contrary, as Mediterraneans, we feel very hurt, very sad, because of the hurtful situation that is happening close from our homes. There are some civilizations that are executing horrendous acts, or hundreds of innocent people are dying, hundreds of children among others, and it's inconceivable that in the 21st century we are attending something that horrendous. So if you allow me, I think we need to exercise compassion towards everyone who is suffering under the terror of any kind. And we need to remember to harbor hopes. A reflection by a high officer in Israel who said Israel will have security when the Palestinians have hope. So let's that Israel will have security and Palestinians will harbor hope, so that we will never have to be witnesses to such as horrendous and dramatic situation with rockets and bombs all over the place. Apologies, but I think in our case, we're talking about IAFES, and we're sensitive at the Club of Rome, and it was necessary to allude to the suffering of our neighbors. Apologies for this digression, and I give the floor to the moderator in order to continue with this session.
Moltes gràcies per aquestes paraules.
Thank you very much for these kind words.
Bona tarda i moltes gràcies per
Good afternoon.
continuaré en anglès.
Thank you very much for being
La conversació
here, and I'm
en...
going to continue in English.
So, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see such an audience for this important subject. I'm Enrique Doblas. I'm researcher on soil ecology at CREAF, a research center located here in Barcelona. And I'm happy not to be the expert in this debate because it's a difficult subject. It's hard and full of different details that can change how we. Well, it's a challenge. I'm so sorry. So I begin with the title, and you will understand me. Farming in a hotter climate, adaptation strategies for a resilient Mediterranean agriculture. When we say in a hotter climate, we say that Mediterranean is facing incredible problems. We begin calling this global warming, but the progressive warming in temperatures means that the climate is going crazy. So now we talk better about climate change in general. And we use this term because climate change is a lot of things. It's not only warmer temperatures, it's also drought. We are going to have more bigger and more frequent episodes of drought. We are going to have, when the rain finally comes, it will be in heavy rain episodes, and it means that probably we are going to suffer flood. And this warmer temperature and dry climate means probably more fires that in the end can affect our crops. And if the sea level rises, we are going to suffer also salinization of many of our crops. We think about in rice, for example, and this will be a problem. And I can continue, but I don't want to be catastrophist, even if I begin with these problems, but we have to know about them. But there are solutions. We have only to adapt. And when we talk adaptation, maybe, you know, well, already we know about this, but it's always nice to remember. To face this climate change, we have two possibilities. We can make adaptation and we can make mitigation. If you remember, mitigation is try to stop climate change. Good luck with that. That means that we have to try to stop this pollution, this increase of CO2 in the atmosphere, and try to avoid this warming temperature. But this is very difficult. This is not the role of agriculture, even if now in the European Union we talk a lot about carbon farming. But the principal thing that has to do agriculture, that it's almost mandatory, is adaptation. Adaptation to this more denser, warmer temperatures and dry climate. And how do we do this adaptation? There are ways. We are going to discuss these possibilities. I only name a few of them. We have crop diversification. We have water management. Water management, I think, is the principal thing that we can do, but also, of course, from my research in soil ecology, I will say soil management is also a pillar in this mitigation measures. We have agroforestry, because diversification is not only refer to a species, to crop species, but also it could be a diversification in the territory to have more options. And there is something that normally we don't say, and we say like, of course, knowledge exchange. But this is one of the most important ones, because there is rural knowledge in the north shore of the Mediterranean. We are going to suffer what is already happening in the south, and they know how to face this problem. And we need to ask those farmers and know about this cultural knowledge that we need to share each other, because if we need to face all these catastrophes that I named in the beginning, is only together. And for this, now you're understanding that I'm happy not to be the expert, because it's a difficult subject. I have two experts that you probably will enjoy. I've been with Valentina Mereu. I mean, she's the person that should be here. She's researcher of the Euro-Mediterranean Center of Climate Change Foundation. Of course, she has a degree in agricultural science and technology, a PhD, because she perseveres with this career. But when I say she's the person, she participated in the development of the Italian National Adaptation Strategy. She has been the coordinator in the development also of the National Adaptation Plan for the Italian Ministry of Environment. But if this is not enough, one of the lead authors of the European Environmental Agency report on climate change adaptation in the agricultural sector in Europe. So perfect.
Thank you.
And if I say beautiful words to Valentina, I have no words for Ali Rhouma. Professor Ali Rhouma is known in all the circles of my colleagues. Currently, he's the senior project officer of the Prima Foundation. An opportunity to say that when Prima didn't exist, we needed, and now it has been a force of providing projects, interesting projects in research all over the Mediterranean, not only in the North Shore. So we are very happy to have Prima, and Ali was there from the beginning. Before that, of course, he has a degree in agricultural engineering, a PhD that was shared between France and Tunisia, but he has been also he was the director of the research department at the Ministry for Agriculture in Tunisia. So we have two incredible people to discuss here. And I'm sorry, but I have to begin with maybe the more simple question, but the more necessary is where we are. I mean, I have been talking about these potential changes and how this is going to affect. No, and I say that it's going to affect agriculture, but I didn't say how. Maybe you, Valentina, can give us a better idea, and then we begin the debate. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if you are, no, you are not seeing my presentation.
Yeah.
You are, okay, perfect. So I'm going to show you a brief introduction regarding the impacts of climate change on agriculture in Mediterranean areas. So the evidences of climate change. The recent changes in the climate are widespread, are rapid, and are intensifying, are without precedent in thousands of years. If you consider, for example, the levels of the atmospheric CO2 concentration, or the sea level rise, or the Arctic sea ice level, etc. So far, we have reached an increase in the global temperature of about 1.1 degrees Celsius. And the temperature has increased faster since 1917 than in any other 50-year periods in the past 2,000 years. And we are also experiencing, as Enrique already said, extreme events that are becoming more frequent and intense related to extreme heat, but also heavy rainfall and droughts. And climate change, including also extreme events, has reduced food and water security, hindering the efforts to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. In this picture, you can see the events of food production losses, and as you can see, the frequency of these events has been increasing over these last decades. And in blue, you can see in orange, you can see the drought-related events, and in blue, other climate-related events. And although the overall agricultural productivity has increased due to plant breeding and also improvement in technologies and crop management, etc., climate change has slowed this growth and with negative impacts observed especially in mid and low latitudes and some positive impacts in some high latitude regions. What can we expect for the future? The projections say that, considering the most extreme scenario, the currently suitable areas for major crops and livestock is projected to decrease of about 10% in 2050 and more than 30% by the end of the century, with several cascading impacts on food and nutrition, because we have impacts on food security, on food yields and quality, but also, of course, impacts also on labor productivity and so income, access to food, and several other interconnected risks. And the Mediterranean basin in this framework is experiencing impacts, very severe impacts, and is considered an hotspot of climate change due to its high exposure and vulnerability to climate change. For example, the temperature in the Mediterranean is increased of about 1.5 degrees, so it's the increase is higher than the global increase in temperature. And the impacts that are observed due to climate change, as you can see for the Mediterranean regions, we can say with a high level of confidence that these negative impacts, for example, on water scarcity, on livestock, fisheries and aquaculture, but also on agricultural productivity, are due to climate change with a medium or high or very high level of confidence. And here you can see how these risks expected for the Mediterranean areas can increase for increasing levels of global warming. For example, for food security, food production and food security, we can move from a moderate to a high risk already in the range of 1.5–2 degrees of increasing global warming. And the impacts, for the Mediterranean area, are likely to exceed the global average trend, so with moderate to high impacts, with, of course, a variability depending on the regions, crops, and scenarios. And in particular, higher temperature will affect crop yield because they affect crop phenology. So we can expect a shorter crop growing cycle, so shorter time for biomass accumulation, but also we can expect problems, for example, of in chilling accumulation for grapevine, or we can expect a reduction in land suitability for several crops like olive in Spain, Tunisia, Algeria, etc. In particular, the negative impacts are expected for rain-fed crops, and the impacts could be very, very severe, for example, for rain-fed wheat. And additional irrigation may be needed for most crops, but irrigation the cost for irrigation can become not sustainable, and also there will be an increasing competition for the use of water resources between different sectors. And jumping to the potential solution to reduce these risks, we have to build a climate resilient development. We need urgent action both on adaptation and mitigation sides. Adaptation, as Enrique already said, adaptation means to cope with the effects of climate change. So try to reduce the negative impacts and exploit potential beneficial opportunities while mitigation means to reduce emissions or increase greenhouse gases sinks. But also we have to consider this action and take into account also the sustainable development goals. So, oh, sorry. Okay. And we have different level of adaptation that we can apply, starting from the coping adaptation to incremental or transformative adaptation. So the coping adaptation is means responding to an event as it happens, while incremental adaptation means to responding to an event, but also learning from what is happening and changing the approach. So it's a kind of anticipatory response. And then transformative adaptation means making long-term changes in advance of the events, and changing and making systemic changes in the system. Of course, moving from coping to incremental and transformation adaptation, it's not an easy task, and there are several barriers and constraints. So I wanted just to stress that when we plan adaptation, when we choose the adaptation options, we have, of course, to evaluate this option according to different criteria of feasibility, but we also have to take into account the synergies with mitigation, because it's important to work also on mitigation, and also take into account the relation with the sustainable development goals. So assess the adaptation option considering all these aspects. Only in this way we'll be able to reach the climate resilient development that is already challenging at the current global warming level, and so it will become even higher challenge in the future if we are not able to contain the global warming below 2 and possibly below 1.5 degrees. And I finished. Sorry, I don't know if.
Thank you very much. No, it was necessary, and it was very interesting, and it put real the situation. I don't know, Ali, if you want to add anything else, please.
Maybe he presented me as a professor researcher, but I am a farmer also, because I have 40 hectares in southern Mediterranean, and last month I see the impact of the climate change. It's terrible. Olive trees now, they did. We cannot crop now olive trees in central Tunisia, for instance. So the situation is catastrophic, because now we're experiencing the impact of the climate change. Another important point of the impact of the climate change is the migration and displacement. Now we're experiencing displacement from the rural areas to the cities, and also migration, because, you know, the impact of the climate change impact the food security, and if there is no food security, there is desertification, there is no crops, there is no income. So the people, what they have to do, they have to migrate or to go to the cities. This is an important, and tomorrow I will moderate a session on food security and migration, by the way. So yes, I would like to add to this the importance of this migration in the Mediterranean, because now we're experiencing this the displacement and migration. So now how to?
No. In fact,
yes.
there is something that we left this for later with the solution. But I like the point that you made about this migration, and you answered already. My next question is the people aware of this climate change? Is only researcher warning about it, or farmers already know what is happening? And you say, of course, are they prepared for this?
Thank you so much for this question. We did a lot of research. I remember when I was researching 20 years in the Mediterranean, what I discovered in the region, new diseases. We never see the diseases in crops. First report, and even we asked the farmers, did you see these symptoms before? They said no, they never have seen these symptoms, new diseases. I cannot see, because I have been scientific name, it's very difficult for you, but we have a very high number of first report diseases, not only in crops, but also in animals and others. So the small farmers, because you know, in the Mediterranean, the small farming system is the dominant. 78% they have 1, 2 hectares, 3 hectares. And now we have a lot of meetings with them. We have a meeting with different stakeholders. Now they are aware. They are aware of the situation because now they have a problem with the shilling. You remember that now, if we reduce the number of hour of frost, the crop cannot flower. We will have no. And now they are thinking about this issue. Yesterday in Tunisia, it was 37 degrees. So they cannot grow now wheat and cereals and what they have to do. So the farmers now, they are aware, the small farmers, I mean. So if we cannot grow crops because the period of the frost is reduced, there is no flowering, there is no production. As she said, now the phenology cycle is reduced. And we never have seen, we did an experiment in the Olive Tree Institute for olive trees, and we have seen 10 days of advancing of the flowering, 10 days before. After 20 years, we never have seen before. So the farmers now in the Mediterranean, in the smart farmer, most of them, if I can say, they are aware of the situation. They are aware because they touch the impact, touch their income. So now they need to adapt to the solution.
And now you say we need to adapt.
Yes.
Is this adaptation possible? I mean, there is Valentina, maybe because we are going to talk about possibilities. I want to know about these examples that you have bring here. That I mean, I imagine that adaptation is not only a question of farmers, or it's also our question. I mean, you say that there are some crops, irrigation crops, that we cannot permit that. I mean, as consumers, I suppose we have to eat less meat. For example, we have to adapt a real Mediterranean diet, because we talk a lot about the Mediterranean diet, but finally we don't do it. So, but in the question of adaptation for farmers, there are possibilities, there are things that we are able to do.
Yes, there are a lot of possibilities, but yes. And actually, adaptation is not a new concept for farmers, because they always had to adapt to climate change and adapt the crop management according to the weather condition. But the majority of the adaptation options so far are coping adaptation, so just to react to the climate events. And now we have to move to try to think in a different way and to plan a more medium long term adaptation. So this is not an easy task, also because it's difficult to develop these medium long term pathways of adaptation. Also because also it's difficult to have the political support, because of the cost, first of all, but also because the benefits of this action are not immediate. So but I think this is the way that we have to follow.
Maybe if I can add, now the small farmers, they adapt. They have local knowledge.
Yeah.
So they have local knowledge, and they try to adapt. They advance the plantation. They try to change other crops. So they are intelligent, the small farmers, because they are practicing the farming. And I know very well a lot of small farmers. They're aware, and they try to adapt themselves. They're trying to do some their local knowledge. So, and they try to adapt, but it's not easy for them, because adaptation is not like if you can advance the plantation or you can change the crop, you will escape of the climate change. In particular, if the impact is severe, because now the climate change is severe, so you cannot do a very simple thing, just to advance the planting date, or to maybe to change the crop, or to do some very small things. But now with the severity, I think we need to grow faster with the adaptation. The local knowledge is good, but it's not sufficient for the adaptation.
It's like we prepare that because you are introducing the next subject perfectly. You say they need more knowledge. How could we make science and these new technologies arrive to those farmers? What kind of new technologies or new knowledge are we talking about?
Yes, this is what we are doing in Prima. I don't know if you know Prima is Partnership Research Innovation in the Mediterranean area. We are 19 participating states, and the main important topic is the adaptation to climate change. We have 90 projects funded, only dedicated to the adaptation of farming system to climate change. So here I prepared some examples of what we are doing in the Mediterranean. So as said, for the adaptation, there are different levels. So the first level, which is the incremental adaptation. So it's just to do some adjustment, but you know, if the impact is severe of the climate change, the incremental adaptation is not enough. This is an example of incremental adaptation. In Prima, we are working on the wild wheat to for the resistance and tolerance to different stress, in particular drought and salinity. And the idea here, why we are doing this, because in southern Mediterranean, we are experiencing the impact of the drought. So we are collecting different varieties, cultivars, and test them in the south. Because in the south, we have the excellent conditions for the drought, and this will be good for the north. You know, so if we can find a variety or a line resistant to drought or to salinity, it will be good for all the Mediterranean. So, but this is incremental adaptation. We have also genotypes of fig germplasm collection. You know that the figs are very resistant, if we can say, in the Mediterranean, but even at certain level, it's impossible that they will be too resistant to the climate change. So we have some varieties that could be resistant to drought and also to salinity. So this is the first level, but the first level is not sufficient. We need to go to the second level, which is basically the system. So this is the system of adaptation. So the system is all the farming system, not only just to touch the irrigation or a variety or to advance the plantation, which is good, of course, but facing this impact of the climate change is not sufficient, and we need to go to the system adaptation. This is an example, very good example in the Mediterranean. Here we are cultivating the camelina in intercropping between the trees. This is the intercropping system. And the camelina, it's a cover crop and cash crop. Why when we say cash crop? Because as I said, olive trees now, you have to wait 3-4 years, sometimes more. I have pictures, but you cannot have the production, and you will see the price of the olive oil will increase this year because there is no enough olives to extract oil. You will see the prices. So now what we have to do, we do some cover crop resistant to salinity, to drought, to allow the small farmers to have some cash. It's cash crop, and also to protect the soil, reduce the evapotranspiration, and this is the intercropping system could help the small farmers or the farm in general to adapt to the climate change. This is the second level, they can say, of the adaptation. But now, if the system is not efficient, because now we are experiencing severe impact of the climate change, we need to go, as you said, for the transformative adaptation. We have very good experience in the Mediterranean. The first one is the APV. I don't know if you have seen before. It's the agro-photovoltaic system. So we have for the panel, you see here, for it looks like the shadow. So we will reduce the impact of the sun, and then we will reduce the evapotranspiration, because in particular in the south, it's very difficult to cultivate if it is very, very, very hot. So putting the panels to produce electricity, and then in the same time, the shadow will reduce this drought and this excessive drought, and then we can cultivate crops like this. As you can see here, the crops, we can cultivate some crops, and this is a good system that could be adapted, a transformative adaptation for the southern Mediterranean. We have very good results, but we are waiting the project to be closed. The second example is the aquaponic. You know that this is soilless cultivation. If this is very difficult to cultivate, we need to go to the hydroponic and to the aquaponic. For instance, the aquaponic, we can do the connection between aquaculture and hydroponic. So the water from aquaculture go to the hydroponic, and from the water will go to the aquaculture. So we don't need enough water. So we will reduce the water, reduce the fertilizer, and we can produce a lot of vegetables, a lot of crops without, and we are coping very well with the climate change. We don't need to have any impact. So everything is covered. So we can produce very well. And we have very good example in Tunisia right now in the hydroponic and the aquaponic system. And this example is in Egypt also. So this transformative adaptation. And now, if I can conclude by this point, we need to go to the transformative adaptation in the Mediterranean. To be honest with you, the incremental is not enough. The system we are not very well. And now the future is to go to the transformative adaptation. These are two examples, but we have other examples in the Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And I like that you raise these new technologies, as we were talking about, that are promising. Valentina, you can add, I imagine, insights of what science is offering apart of these examples.
Yes, what I want to add is also an experience that we are now making in Sardinia in the framework of an European project focused on build resilient regions in the Mediterranean, because we applied an innovative, we are applying because we just started, so-called system innovation approach. So we are trying to build with our stakeholders of the agricultural sector these resilient pathways. So we are working with the stakeholders, and we developed together a mental map of the system, highlighting all the problems of the systems, and together with the stakeholders we developed a vision for 2015, so what we want to achieve in 2050, and now we are working, backcasting, try to find all the milestones, all the objectives to reach this vision, and also trying to define the potential innovation to reach all these milestones, and to build these adaptation pathways, innovative adaptation pathways. And it's, in my opinion, for my experience, I don't know if you agree, it's a very interesting process, because we have a different point of view, from farmers to policymakers to the private sector, and we are trying all together to go towards a transformative adaptation for our region. So we are now in the middle of this process, but I think the result will be interesting. So far, the majority of the ideas that we are developing are focused on, for example, on precision farming.
Yes.
So the use of tools that allows the farmers to use in a more efficient and sustainable way the available resources in terms of fertilizer, water, etc. But they need to be supported not only in terms of course, in financial terms, but also they need to know from researchers what are the action that they need to implement to adapt to climate change. So we have also to try to close this gap between science. We have to transfer our knowledge, find better way to transfer our knowledge, and develop tools that can help farmers and the other actors to adapt to climate change.
I can complete now with this transformative. As I said, we need to go to the transformative adaptation. Now there is a tool, an approach that's very good for this, is the Nexus approach. I don't know if you are aware, because imagine if we have a problem with, there is no precipitations, we need to irrigate. If we irrigate, we need energy. So we will use a lot of energy. So the consequence is the over-exploitation of the groundwater. So the idea is to think about all the components, the energy, the food, water, and the ecosystem. So this integrated management of the resources to avoid the trade-offs, because imagine if we will try to sensitize, give a lot of incentives to the farmers, to irrigate because there is no water. We need to irrigate. What will happen? We will have an overexploitation of the groundwater because if they will use the renewable energy, which is free, the consequence is the overexploitation of the groundwater. So the idea of the approach is to integrate the management of the resources to avoid any problem with any resources. So on this approach, now we are working in Prima, and we are doing, are trying to demonstrate this approach in the ground with the participation of the farms, and in particular when you use the adaptation, in particular transformative adaptation.
I like very much that you bring this concept and that you developed it. When I say this typical thing, we have to do it together. I was talking about the North and South Shore, but also together in different fields of research, of management, it's only as researchers, I have always, now as transfer officer, I have always told to my researchers and to the researchers and say, please, if you do a paper, I understand it's good for your CV, but no farmer is going to read that.
Yeah.
And also, and more important, you didn't ask the farmer if your research was important for him, because maybe it's not even useful. Yeah. So this kind of thinking has to change, and this kind of project that everybody talks in the same table, managers, energy producers, companies are really necessary, and are even sometimes are even more new than the precision farming. I mean, you get ideas that are really necessary and really new. But coming back to, because we are talking about different stakeholder cooperation, but also coming back to the North and South cooperation, do you think there is still knowledge that we can share? I mean, for sure we can share money because it's needed to share. Also, this solution needs a lot of money. Even for have this meeting, we need money and we don't have too much time. What we can share? There is knowledge still there from the farmers or from the South, from the North, that we can put together in the table?
Yeah. So, for example, the problem of water scarcity in the South, we are used to deal with this problem. So, for example, in Italy, in the southern of Italy, we already experienced this problem, and so we built, for example, dams. So we are now prepared. Yes. But in the north of Italy, they recently discovered this problem, and they are not prepared. Yes. The north of Italy is the richest part of Italy, but they are not actually prepared to cope with this problem. So the south can help the north, for example.
Maybe I give you an example. When I was a researcher, I discovered the new fungi on olive trees. It's the canker of the shoots of the olive trees. I did the first report in plant disease in the US, in California. And I went to Cordoba with the Professor Antonio Trapero Casas. He said there is a new fungi because it's climate change in Tunisia, and also I saw it in Morocco. Have you this fungi or not in Spain? He said, no, we don't have. We never have seen this. So we took a car and we went to the high-end region, and we discovered. And when I see this fungi, I said, yeah, it's the first time. He has a lot of experience. Even he's older than me, but he never see this, because we have seen this in the south, and now because we are experiencing the impact of the climate change, and now this disease is in the north, because this is a first report, and we publish it together, this new fungi in Cordoba. So I think that in the south we are experiencing a lot of impact of the climate change. So a lot of knowledge could be translated to the north, like the resistance of the varieties, the wheat, the crops, everything. If we are testing, we are like a laboratory in the south, so the results could be translated to the north.
No, thank you. It was the kind of example that I was looking for. You said perfectly. Sometimes the north, they seem prepared. They are saying, "Oh, climate change, we can have wine finally." No, you are going to have more than wine. You are going to have a few problems. But climate is associated, as you say in the beginning, now that we are talking differences between the south and the north, it's going to be more than only climate change. As you say, it can provoke migration, people are going to, poverty is going to increase. So can you give me some insight about how to ensure justice, and I think it's also mixed with the gender problem, because most of the farmers are women, but they are not the owners of the land. I mean, there is something there to talk. I don't know, Ali, if you have some ideas.
Maybe I will talk with my experience in the southern Mediterranean. When you go to the rural areas, what you found there, what you can find, the small farms, most of them are women, rural. Because, you know, the women, they work in the cities because the productivity is very low, the impact of the climate change, there is low income, they cannot produce. So the men, they are living in the cities, and the rural women are in the areas. And I think you know very well the situation also. So now this, what we can do. So the problem of displacement and migration, because you know displacement within the country and migration to Europe or other. So what we can do, and I think this is what we are even in Prima. So we're doing some diversification of crops, like some cash crops, like you have seen this example. So if you have olive trees and you have to wait 4 or 5 years without production, what you have to do? Now we are doing some diversification of the crops. There are new crops that could be produced, that could be cultivated in the south, that could produce. For example, aloe vera, a lot of crops that could be cultivated even and they're resistant to drought, like also I forget the names of the crops, very resistant to drought. So the diversification of the crops in the south could help to reduce the migration, because the migration and displacement. But also another important point for the rural women is they should be involved in the decision-making process. Yeah. So it looks like they are completely alone, and they have no idea, and they have to be there in this process of the decision with and this is an important point. The access of the finance, the small farmers, the rural women, they have no access to the finance. So they cannot have credits, they cannot have anything to develop like small activities, because the idea is to develop small activities, small projects that they will have income, and they have no this activity. So the fact to encourage them to have these small activities, to access to the finance, to be included in the decision process, I think it's very, very important, in particular for the rural women.
I agree. Yeah. I totally agree. And in particular for the role of women, for example, in this living lab, we carefully selected the stakeholder to try to assure a good presence of women. We are about 45% of women in our living lab.
The data of the women, rural women, 40% of the work is in the agriculture, 40% are women in the south. I don't know the data in the north. 40% are women. Imagine, which is an important indicator for me. It's a key performance indicator we should take into consideration. Yeah. I know very well. So I visited a lot of places, because when I was a researcher, I visited a lot of places: Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, and even also Spain, because also I did a lot of research in Spain. But I understand that 40% are women, rural women, and they are struggling because they are lost. They have no decision, they have no access to the finance, but also they are efficient. They could produce. And we have some examples. So rural women can make money just with some simple activities. And this is it's in line with the adaptation to climate change.
No, I have seen this in Morocco and Tunisia when they made association are the more fruitful ones. Yeah. But I was imagining when you mentioned the lab, the living lab, I wanted to ask you if they were implied and if they are participative, because sometimes
yes, they are, and it's very important to have these women in the living lab, because we have different, we think differently, so it's useful to have also women actively involved in this adaptation planning. But one mistake that we made, and I hope that in the next phases we'll resolve it, is we didn't involve enough young people. And this is a problem because we are planning the future for for the young people, and we don't have enough young people in our living labs, but we need to have also their point of view, I think.
Yeah, this is a very good point.
Another point, I think, for the rural women and also for the small farm within the rural areas, the problem is the access to the market. You see this plant, the camelina, it's the first time we experience in the north. So the farmers, yes, it's very good that they will have this plant. But now what they have to do? They have to extract, and they need to have the market, because otherwise it's excellent, this very good, fantastic plant. They will cover the soil, but now they need to access to market. This value chain could be implemented, because without this, we cannot adapt to the climate change. To encourage them to cultivate these crops and to adapt to the climate change, we need also to give them the access to the market and to structure the value chain in the rural areas.
And this is maybe related with what you just said about the youth, because when they are implied, they are more entrepreneurs. They have this spirit of changing things. They have they are not scared of changing things in the territory. So we need young people to give this energy for change.
Yes.
Now the difficult question, because we come from the research side maybe, and well, you are more aware of what I'm going to say, but from this point of view, what we have talking about, can we give some advice to policy changes? I mean, all the things that we have talked, all these potential solutions can be applied more easily with some suggestions on policies.
Yes, I was involved in the negotiation of the COP, different COPs. And I prepared, if I can say, with other colleagues, the National Adaptation Plan of Tunisia, and I was expert in Morocco to prepare the National Adaptation Plan. And I think Valentina also prepared the National. So when we discussed it in the COP, to be honest with you, when you see the National Adaptation Plan, it's very nice when you have seen in this document. But these policies is not applied in the ground. So I have seen all the National Adaptation Plan, most of them in the Mediterranean, very nice, document, but in the practice, we need to be implemented on the ground. Because the idea in the different COPs, they privilege the mitigation. They said they give a lot of money for mitigation. And there's nothing for adaptation. We have a lot of data because we don't have enough time to speak. But now the policies should go to the adaptation. We need policies for adaptation, but also the cross-sectoral adaptation. Sometimes we have policies on water, policies on irrigation, policies on whatever, and there is no cross-sectoral policies. And this will lead to a lot of maladaptation in the region. And now we are struggling even with different countries. They don't like to change. They said we will not eliminate the ministries. At least we will stay, but at least the policies and the strategy remain siloed. And with these policies, we cannot go far with the adaptation.
So the principal advice from your side is not only make the policies, but put it into practice.
And the cross-sectoral policies, because if the policies are vertical, are in silo, it's not sufficient for the adaptation. So we need the cross-sectoral policies to take the adaptation of farming system to climate change into consideration.
And particular ideas for governing, for management, Valentina, maybe from this lab that
it's actually difficult because also in my experience, when I coordinated, for example, the national adaptation plans, the plan for Italy, the plan was ready in 2018. And then the Italian government signed the plan just this year. Okay. So there is also the problem of changing governments, and so all the work that you did remain in the table. And also, as Ali said, the allocation of resources, because a plan without resources to implement adaptation is just nothing. And yes, I agree with your points actually, because we work on mitigation, but we have also to
less money for the other.
I really appreciate your opinion. Sorry.
In the COP27, I don't know if you attended the COP27, the accent is put to put more money for adaptation. But so far, we are more in the mitigation rather than adaptation. So,
of course, mitigation is necessary because otherwise the adaptation cannot be implemented. Because if we reach increases in temperature over 2 degrees, adaptation is very challenging. But now we have also to adapt, so we have to reserve money also for adaptation.
How much cost this adaptation?
It's expensive, but it's not.
But it's not that expensive. I mean, it's going to pay back if we spend the money on adaptation now, that if we spend it when the catastrophe happens.
Yes, you know, the adaptation is long term.
Yeah.
Maybe the resilience, it could be a short term, but the adaptation long term. We need to invest for the next generation. You cannot see the results right now.
This is the problem.
So that's why we need to invest for our generations. Otherwise, you see that the desertification now is advancing or not. This is an indicator. The desert now is advancing to the north, and we have to be careful. So if we will not put a lot of money and budget for the adaptation, our generation will suffer.
Yeah.
So we cannot see the results of the adaptation in a very short term. So we have to see at long term. But policies right now, because mitigation is very easy to reduce the greenhouse gases, to put the panel, and you have seen the panels. It's very fantastic. It's very nice. The panels will reduce and we can see that. But for the adaptation, it's very difficult. Like the adaptation of the system, the agroecology. I don't know if you have an idea about the agroecology practices. We have a lot of research, but so far there is no adoption by policies of the agroecology practices. Why there is no adoption? We have a lot of experiences because there is no incentive for the farmers, because the policymakers are not aware about the importance of the agroecology practices. The agroecology practices are very important adaptation of the farming system. But so far until now, there is no adoption by the farmers and also by the policymakers. Why? This is the questions. Because they cannot see the results immediately.
Yeah.
They need to improve the production, so they are in the green. They are in the green revolution. Put a lot of inputs, fertilizers, and we have a lot of production. This is what they have. They would like.
You say, isn't it, Valentina? You say that's the problem. I mean,
yes,
that
that's the problem, because
we don't see the
results in a short term period. So, and the investment and the resources necessary are quite important. Of course, the cost of inaction is higher than the cost of adaptation, but it's difficult.
How do you show this cost?
It's difficult to introduce adaptation in the policy.
But I can say in the opposite, in the other way around. If there is no adaptation, what's the maybe this is your next question.
It's what Valentina just said, that the cost is higher.
We will not do the adaptation because we will not do the adaptation. What's the consequence? It's the food insecurity.
Yeah.
Desertification, displacement, migration, the increase of the price, the food prices. So, and we are experiencing this right now. So without doing the adaptation, the consequence will be even more expensive for the all the population and for the small farmers and also for us.
I think we have a responsibility. I say we can change our diet. We can buy products in the different timing, in the correct timing.
Yeah.
We can change our politicians also. So not only ask, please do this, and they never do. You can change this person. But you are true. Sometimes we need long-term plans that do not depend on the politician of the moment. I mean, there are think and agreed between different groups and they work together. In this way, we are sure that even changing the government, this plan on agriculture, on environment is not going to change in 4 years or 5 years or whatever. But when I say we have the last word, I wanted also to introduce the public.
Just another point, last point.
Sorry.
The problem with the ecosystem, maybe we did not talk about this. Imagine without any adaptation, the consequence is the degradation of the ecosystem. You see now the pollution caused by the pesticides and so on, because farmers, what they have to do to produce, they have to use fertilizer, they have to use a lot of pesticides, because with the climate change, there's a lot of diseases, insects, fungi, or whatever. So to control them, they have to put a lot of pesticides. So the consequence is the degradation of the ecosystem, and also the health, our health. So you see the impact. If we will not, we are not going to the adaptation, the consequence is not only the prices, but also our health.
You're totally right. It's and you make a good point. It's not only to believe in new technologies always that are going to save us, because sometimes these new technologies have consequences. So it's a question of change our minds and our thinking and try to adapt the entire ecosystem, including cities and everybody in the territory. And now, please, I think that the public probably want to make some questions, so you are free to ask. Por favor. Yes.
Hi, you've talked a lot about incentives. I was in development for many years. I've heard all these discussions for 30 and 40 years. So you haven't given me a lot of optimism. To me, it seems the biggest incentive is when people start dying in big numbers. This is what we've seen with COVID. So if we continue on this line, when are people going to start really perishing in huge numbers because of climate-related agricultural problems?
I didn't understand the question.
It was maybe a comment.
It's more a comment.
No?
We look at COVID. For example, we've had lots of health disasters previously, but until COVID came around, billions of dollars weren't materialized. So I'd like to know what your predictions are from when this is going to really affect human mortality at such a large number that people will start to pay attention.
Oh, it's difficult. Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, if when we made predictions, as researchers, we made prediction or when the crops are going to, as you say, as you show in this graphic, when we have this loss of food, but it's true that we never relate those numbers with the consequences, and maybe this is like a red light. I don't know if you agree or if you have this number or when it's going to happen.
There are some studies in this question, because now with DGCM, the global climate modeling, and a lot of, in particular, supercomputing center is here. They're doing a lot of prediction for 20 or 30 years. So we have some evidences that maybe in 10 years we will have more temperature 2 degrees or 1.5, and the consequence on the production, because we have all the data from the satellite images. So, and we have evidence that we will have less productivity, we will have more desert. So I think the evidence are there according to different studies, because I'm not expert in this prevision and modeling, but I think we have the data. I don't know.
But the data of sorry, because maybe I didn't understand the question.
The question is when people is going to begin in big numbers, because they say that this is the moment that people really realize we need to change.
It's difficult to. We have, of course, the projection. Yes, but I don't think that we are able to predict the moment.
No, the question is very good, because imagine if we want to change the crop. First, we have crops, and you say that after 10 years we have to change completely this crop and put another crop, because it's not adapted to the conditions. Yeah.
Yes.
I think this is a very good question, but we need to do this prevision and to see this how because this is linked to the transformative adaptation.
No, and what you say about the One Health concept. I mean,
Yes.
we are not talking only about food, but
Yeah.
our survival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good and difficult question. Anything else?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your insights. You've been talking about empowering the farmers and really make them take place in the decision making. So my question is, how do you do it? We talk about empowering, but how do we engage the agricultural sector that we know that it's not a sector really open for modernization, not at least as other sectors. So how do we approach, and they are the most beneficial, they are the most vulnerable
To the climate change.
into the climate change. So how do you approach them, and how do you really engage them to take part of this? This is like life meaning decisions that they really need to be taken part in consideration. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, in our experience, it was quite easy to involve them. Maybe because also we have an experimental farm, and so we are organizing also some field days, and we are showing the result that we are obtaining, applying different adaptation measures, for example, conservation agriculture, or the result that we are obtaining with the genetic improvement of durum wheat, for example. So we are trying to involve them in these kind of field days, and then they are following us in the process in the living lab, and they are actually interested in have a voice and identifying with us and developing with us these pathways. We finished the first part of the activities with them, and then we asked, okay, we have other 2 years. Are you interested in following the activities? And they said, yes, we are actually interested. So far the process is quite
If I can, thank you for this question, because I know very well the Southern Mediterranean. I don't know, for the North, you can correct me. Most of the farmers are not structured in cooperatives. So they're completely separate. So the idea now is to group them into cooperatives or groups or something like that. If they will be in cooperatives, for instance, I think they will have decision, they will have access to the market, they will have all these trainings, the capacity building, and even we have a call in Prima that's dedicated to the organization of the small farms, because we know very well that 70–80% in the Mediterranean are small farmers, and they're not structured around cooperatives or association or whatever. So the idea how we can put them together.
Mm-hmm.
If they are together, now they can be involved in the decision-making processes. They can have access to the finance. They can also have access to the trainings and the capacity building, and they will have an invoice. So we are going to this direction, but it's not easy, you know, with the model of organization. Sometimes in the mentality of the Southern Mediterranean in particular, very difficult. But we succeed. We have some experience on that. Thank you.
So it was two principal ways, not only asking them to participate, that we forgot for many years, and then to make the associations. I think this is a very good point.
Oh, wow.
Oh, we have a lot to then you.
No, say less.
No hi ha problema.
En aquest assumpte de l'adaptació del pagès.
Regarding the adaptation of the farmers to the new climate situations and other temperatures, where do we find the solution of a change with new seeds that can be resilient to droughts, or some varieties of fruit trees that have a shorter cycle? Because I believe that this could be a solution, because the farmer can move from cultivating wheat to cultivating, I don't know, something else. I don't know. So what do you think about this solution?
Under his experience, the solution is to change probably crop varieties because he sees very difficult to make the farmer change completely the crop that they have grown all their lives. What do you think about it?
Yeah, this is a very good question because sometimes, not all the time, the small farms, they don't accept changes. So they have to keep their crops. They like, in particular, the old, farmers. So it's not easy, but we need to start at least by some pilots. If they will see the results, then they have to follow. I can give you an example. For olive trees, for instance, we have very old olive trees, and there is no production, there is no productivity in the southern of Tunisia. We ask them to uproot them and cultivate new ones. They refused. They said, no, it's impossible that I can eliminate these olive trees. So the idea, we take another small farms and we plant small trees between the old trees. And after they have seen the results, and that is very interesting, and the new olive trees are producing very well. So they are convinced that by just looking to the experiences of some farms. Very well, I understand this point. Very difficult with the mindset of our Mediterranean farmers. But we need to show them the good practices, best practices. If they see the good practices, then they will change their mind.
Yes,
No.
I agree.
Aquí.
Sí, sí, espero transmitir claramente la pregunta que os quiero hacer. En la humanidad nos estamos dando cuenta de que tenemos un pacto de descarbonización, por tanto un pacto de energía. Hablamos ya de pactos de agua. Me da la sensación que estamos llegando a un punto del pacto por la tierra. Es decir, y es una pregunta que os lanzo, es decir, hay ciertos elementos que se escapan al libre albedrío. Como bien dices, cambiar las costumbres de un país es muy complicado.
As you well say, to change the customs is really complicated. And it's really complicated, but if you do it collectively, it's simpler. And I think that we have the accumulated knowledge, the technological knowledge to introduce variations in the crops. But at the same time, we have some people who are linked to agriculture, to farming, and they are performing really important work for humankind. And at the same time, there are huge investments, not just in technology, but also in accumulated knowledge and capacity of resilience, which is even more important. So I think that we are moving forward towards a pact for the earth. There is more desertification in the north. But if the north would release lands, it would be possible. We know that the savanna in Russia, there is a great level of retention of CO2 and permafrost. And as there are some fertile, if there were to be more fertile grounds there, the problem would be bigger. My question is, are we moving forward towards a pact for the earth? And more specifically for the Mediterranean? And then secondly, are we capable, just like in every other restructuring processes of industries, do we have the possibility of giving new hopes to the farmers so that they can continue to grow their land, even with new crop varieties? And if the solution would be to nationalize the land?
Yo lo firmo. What do you think about it?
I like the Pact for the Earth.
Sorry, because
It said when we have an agreement for energy, agreement for water, is the time for an agreement for the land. That is the correct word.
Like,
And if this agreement is not only imply this investment in money and efforts, but also probably nationalization, maybe, of the land.
Yes.
I don't know if I translated more or less.
No, I have a new initiative for the COP28. It's l'Accord Mondial de l'eau. It's in French. I don't know how it is.
Yeah, the agreement for water.
And exactly in your question, we thought about like an accord on the soil, because, you know, the soil, without soil, we cannot produce anything. So why we cannot think about like an accord mondial on the soil in the COP, and it will be like an important for advocacy, for policy making, and to consider as an important pillar for the production. Because, you know, now, as you said, the desertification is advancing from the south to the north. We have a lot of data, and the situation is alarming. And we are always talking about water, a lot of, but the soil is neglected. So I think the soil deserves to be mentioned as an important pillar and to be advocated. So I'm thinking, I remember when we prepared the Accord Mondial de l'eau, we are thinking also another Accord Mondial of the soil. Yes, I think your point is challenging, and hopefully we can think about this for the future. Yes.
But I don't know if at European level, at least there is the soil mission. So the soil is rich attention. There are a lot of projects now.
But it's a research innovation, not in the
yes. But
yeah, the mission soil, but in research innovation. Yeah. But now with the policies.
Okay.
The policy makers, always the soil is not considered as an important, not considered, but there is no emphasis, there is no efforts, there is no, and this is linked to the adaptation, you know, because all this, the adaptation, it passed through the soil, like all the agricultural practices, conservation agriculture, intercropping, mixed farming system, all this, so the soil is an important component. It's included in the adaptation, and the adaptation is neglected so far. So we are giving more importance to the attenuation. So I think it's in the adaptation.
If I may, maybe to answer this last point of nationalization, there is, well, we have to admit, even we like it or not, we are in a capitalist world in all levels. There is a potential solution in the middle, that is this payment for ecosystem services. So at least the soil is for each farmer or landowner, but at least they can receive an extra for conserving this soil and for conserving this land, because they made an effort on this. It's like foresters. Foresters are like the bad people. No, sorry, but foresters, the forest owners are taking care of the forest, and they should receive an extra money for this. Maybe this is something that is in the middle of debate, but I have hopes in this payment for ecosystem services.
We are involved now in a European project called Invest Soil that aims to define a monetary value of ecosystem services provided by soil. So we are trying to do that not only for the agricultural sector, also we are considering in the industrial soils, etc. And the aim of the project is what you were saying, so try to find a monetary value of the ecosystem services provided by the soils.
No sé si contesta más o menos lo que...
No, but the question is very important, because the soil is not like, I am a farmer, the soil is not my soil, it's the soil of all the people, because if it's my land, but finally I cannot do whatever I want. So we need to protect the soil. If this desertification comes to my soil, then it will go to the other soil and it will go to the north. So we need to think broadly. Yeah. So this is the point, and maybe the idea is to have an accord mondial on the soil to think about it. Thank you for this question.
Maybe we have time for a last question. Sorry. At least in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, at least.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentations and the dialogue. My question is adaptation starting with reducing food wastage? Is food waste in the adaptation plans that you have been working on?
Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
At this point.
Yes, we are also considering this aspect. Actually, it was one of the points that emerged in our living lab. So to find solution to reduce this also waste. And so I think it's also important for the adaptation point of view, also for the mitigation.
Yeah,
Because we can,
food waste, I think, in the
yes,
Mediterranean. I don't know if you have the data of the food waste.
terrible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, incredible.
I think 30–40%.
I don't
We are so doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's water. There is water inside the virtual water. There's energy and also there. And also there is the inputs, what we have put in the inputs is there. So we need to work on this. And I think there's a lot of efforts in this direction, in particular the circular economy. So the circular is to have to try to recycle, valorize the waste and give them and I think it's the circular economy strategy. There is a strategy, European strategy on circular economy. So yeah, thank you for this question.
Well, I think, okay, one last question.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Sorry. Thank you very much for the compliments. It was really interesting. So my question is: before you were mentioning that the cost of adaptation is going to be expensive, the issue is who is going to assume this cost? Because if we're speaking about the actual farmers, I don't think that everybody has the income or the same income, depending on the territory they come from. So my question is: who is expected to assume these costs and how? Thank you.
Good question. So far, the cost for adaptation are, if I remember well, more than 90% from the public. And but it will be important also to involve the private sector in this process, because also adaptation opens a lot of also opportunities to create new jobs. So we have also to take in consideration the opportunities that adaptation can provide also for the private sector.
But yes, the public, but I am not totally agree with you. If we do give them to the public, if they have no money, what we have to do?
No, but so far the public.
Yes, so we need to give incentives to the farms to do this kind of adaptation. If, for instance, I would like to do this transformative adaptation in my farm, and I have some incentives, 50%. 60% from the state. So I'll be encouraged to implement these practices. If they have nothing, so it's impossible for me. So at least I think for the policies to give incentives, in particular for the small farmers, I mean. How much, and I don't know, this is to be defined, but at least I am not sure the state should be there. Of course, the policy should be there, but through incentives, not to only the the country or the public sector will take into consideration all this investment. It's good, but if there is no money, what do you have to do? So at least, because we have the smart, they have money. We have very rich farms in the Mediterranean. Just to give them some incentives, and they will do a lot of things in the adaptations.
And also, I want to add, as consumers, also we have a role there, and to try to look before buying things where it comes from, and try to support these small farmers, local farmers. So we try to reduce the footprint.
Yeah, maybe we can think about the public-private partnership, how we can implement it, because we have some policies, but it has not been implemented so far, as I know. I don't know, you can correct me in the north. But the public-private partnership would be a very good instrument to invest in these kinds of adaptations. Because if I am a private sector and I have the panels, I can invest. But if there is a public-private partnership, so as a private sector, I have a company on the photovoltaic or whatever, and there is the farmers and the public. If there is a public-private partnership, then it is very good instrument for the investment, because private sector, they have money. Some companies, they have money also to invest. So investment is very important. It should not only be in the hand of of course, for the public sector, but we need to involve the private sector, in particular the SMEs. You know, in the Mediterranean, the SMEs are the backbone of the economy of the Mediterranean. How we can revitalize the short and medium enterprise in the region, and in particular in the adaptation.
Totally right.
Yes.
I think it's time for try to put the main ideas that we have and that has arisen even among the public. I don't know if you want to say something. I have here a few things. I begin. Okay,
go ahead.
For me, important thing from the beginning, it's happening. It's not the time to say it's going to happen. I mean, we see already that it's happening. We have to pass from reaction to prevention, even if we don't see the result, even if it costs money. We have to make an adaptation between new technologies, but also this system or transformative adaptation. That it will be difficult for some farmers, but for that, we have to involve everybody in the decision-making process. I like it, this sentence. We have to involve everybody in the value chain. And I get with I finish with I like it very much, because I asked for policy, but you were both you have participated in those plans, and you say, well, more than policies, please put it into practice. And I in this put it into practice, I would like to say this Pacto de la Tierra. I love it, and maybe they will put it into practice soon. I don't know if you want to add something. If I forget an important idea.
If I can summarize, because we discussed a lot of things like this. We have a lot of meetings, so now we need to go to the action, because we have a lot of things in the adaptation, incremental system, transformative. We have the knowledge, we have research, we have innovation, and now we need to go to the practice. We have to implement. To implement, we need the funds. We need the funds, because we have now the increase of the temperature. It will increase for the future, hopefully not, but it will increase if there is no action. So there is an effort in mitigation, but we need funds for adaptation, in particular for the Mediterranean. While the Mediterranean is not doing a lot of, lobbying or something like that, to put funds for the implementation of the adaptation in the Mediterranean. So we have a problem, because the desertification will advance. And we are looking at this situation, problem with the productivity. We are problem with scarcity of water. The prices are now, they are very high. The desertification now is increasing, and we are not doing anything. Not anything to exaggerate, but at least we need to have more efforts. So we need more funds. And I don't know why these different COPs, in the COP27, we insisted a lot. I don't know if you attended, to have more funds for the adaptation and to put it in the ground. So I think this is what I would like to say. We need to put it in the ground. We need more to put funds, and also the participation, as you said.
Yes,
it's not like
another just final point is the monitoring and evaluation of adaptation, because it's a step that we already missed in our plans and strategies. It's a very important step, because we need to know how our adaptation action are working, and if necessary to change something. And so,
very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Grazie mille, Valentina. Merci beaucoup. It was a very, at least for me, I have a lot of ideas. Very interesting meeting. Muchas gracias a todos vosotros.
Gracias.
Thank you so much.
That's all.
Thank you.